I will call to order the February 9th meeting of the Village of Wesley Chapel Council. We have Cub Scout Pack number 46 from Sila Presbyterian. If you young gentlemen would like to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone will stand.
Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Scout salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
If you'll remain standing for our invocation, please.
If you will, pray with me. Lord God, we just thank you for this day. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to spend this time in your creation. Lord, we thank you for everything about Wesley Chapel, for the citizens, for the protection, for the history, Lord, and we also thank you for the future. Lord, I ask that in all that we do tonight, all that we say and our thoughts, we have those, we share those in a way that would only honor you. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
So that leads us to public comments. Ms. Bumpire, how many do we have?
We have one, Mr. Hill.
All right, Mr. Hill, if you'll come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, thank you. Jim Hill, I live at 2314 Wesley Landing Road in Wesley Chapel. I'm also the Homeowners Association President for the Courtyards at Wesley Chapel. Since it's on your agenda for later tonight, I wanted to just let you know how, I guess, frustrated me and my neighbors are about the lack of progress on the turn lane at Newtown and Cuthbertson Road. The zoning order for this was signed by the county in January of 2021. So believe it or not, here we are 5 years later. The zoning order said, I'm reading verbatim, it said the developer will construct a southbound left turn lane with storage and taper on Cuthbertson Road at its intersection with Newtown Road. Unfortunately, though, I mean, I read through the entire zoning order and it doesn't say when that needs to be done, which I think was a big oversight on the county's part to not specify, to put a condition in with no date required, because with the pace of the development going, I'm guessing they're maybe 50 to 60% built after 5 years, so there's another 150 or so homes to be built in several years. So I don't know what recourse the village has, but I'm just asking you to consider whatever the village can do. It seems like they started doing some grading work in the summer, which got us all excited, that something's going to happen, and then it just kind of stopped. And then I go by there just about every day, and there's been no progress no discernible progress probably in the last 3 or 4 months. So it's a mystery. So like I said, I'm here to learn what you know about it and encourage you to think whatever you can do to kind of move it along.
Thank you, sir. All right. So that leads us to the additions, deletions, and adoption of the agenda. I need to add item 7D for a fire district update. And then does anybody else have any additions or deletions?
I'll make a motion to approve with one modification.
Second by Deb. Any further questions or discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay. And then on the consent agenda, the only item is to approve our council meeting minutes.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Then that leads us to the Union County Sheriff's Office presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff members, and obviously all the residents in attendance. I'd like to thank you all for having us out tonight. And by us, I'll introduce the group that's here with me in just a moment. For those who I've not met yet, my name is James May. I'm a lieutenant for Sheriff Eddie Cathy. Proud to be a lieutenant for Sheriff Cathy, good man. And I currently supervise all 5 small-town contract deputies. So that includes the Village of Wesley Chapel, Town of Weddington, Village of Marvin, Village of Lake Park, and most recently the Town of Wingate. So each and every day our guys and girls are out in the field working hard for these small towns, and I just get to a lot of times just tell them thank you for what you do. So we've got a great group of folks here with me tonight as first, and who will present our year-end, basically what we call a report card, is Chief Deputy Tony Underwood. He's our Chief Deputy of Operations. Next behind him in the green jacket is Captain Wes Tyson. He's our Patrol Division Captain. I believe many of you know our Patrol Deputy assigned to the Village of Wesley Chapel, Deputy Brandon Wicker. And then next to him in the blue jacket is our Public Information Officer for the Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Matthew Winfrey. So Chief and I talked about this beforehand, and he's going to come up and really do a presentation of what last year looked like for law enforcement and the contract services that you all and the residents of Wesley Chapel paid for and what we delivered. So he's going to go through that, and at the end, I'm going to step back up and try to address some of the questions that we received from the board over the past week. We got a lot of them, but I think through this presentation and through our follow-up that we'll be able to address many of those questions that you all have. And this is an open forum for us. That's why we brought everybody with us. We want to be able to answer everything we can. So that's it for me for now. Chief Deputy Underwood, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. So good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here. I apologize in advance. I'm fighting a little crud. I'm not contagious, but it's affecting my voice, but I'll get through this as best I can. Do you have a clicker that I can use? Or? You can just look at me. I'll just look at you. All right, I'm going to look at you then. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through this year-end report, essentially, which, in order to give it context, we try to provide county-wide statistics. These are metrics that we try to look at. That is our sort of end-of-year report card, how we're doing, and a lot of the things that is important to people. It also tells us, do we have enough staffing? Do we have deputies assigned appropriately throughout the county? Where are our greatest needs? And because what's important to us are response times. We want preventive patrols. We want that high visibility policing, which does prevent crime. And we want to make sure people are strategically located so that when that 911 call for service comes in, they can respond in a very quick period of time. So we'll show you the county-wide stats first, and then we'll talk about Wesley Chapel specifically. So, yes, ma'am. Yes, we'll go on to the next one, please. All right, so what you'll see on the map there are our 4 county-wide primary response zones. You'll notice, you can barely see it there, but Wesley Chapel falls within the northern part, just above the 4. We're in Zone 4 of the county's response zone. That's our largest and most populated zone. The reason that we want to draw attention to that is where Wesley Chapel is located. And our one deputy assigned to Wesley Chapel is not on duty, and there's a call for service, you're typically going to receive a response from a deputy assigned to that Zone 4. That Zone 4 goes all the way south to the state line, all the way over to the far western part of the county outside of Marvin. So there's a lot of area within that Zone 4. Depending on the nature of the call, it could be a delayed response if there's not a dedicated deputy available to respond in an emergency situation in Wesley Chapel. So it is one of our most densely populated zones, a lot of traffic, concerns. So I just kind of wanted you to see where that's located. So those are our 4 primary zones. We also, basically call those subzones. I think Wesley Chapel is for our purposes, Zone 11, but that's where it falls within Zone 4. Okay, this next chart is countywide patrol events, starting in 2010 to the far left, all the way to the far right in 2025. In the column to the far right, the calls for service is highlighted in blue. Countywide last year, Union County Sheriff's Office had 36,790 calls for service. Those are basically 911 dispatched calls where people, there's a break-in, or there's, a car's been broken into, or there's an alarm call, something like that. but 36,790 events last year were dispatched to deputies. We don't control the number of those. We just respond to the calls that come in. But you can see it's kind of held steady over the last few years with a little bit of an increase. But what's more important above that is that orange column that goes all the way up near 200,000. That's those self-initiated calls. That is really what's a game changer for us. Those are the calls or those events that sheriff's deputies are doing, those community patrols, sometimes traffic stops, that they're self-initiating those calls. That's not coming through 911. They see something that maybe looks suspicious, or they need to drive through the neighborhood, be seen, get out, talk to people, check doors, check businesses. Those are those self-initiated calls, which honestly are sort of your best crime deterrent, is that high visibility. So you notice those are way up last year, 162,000 countywide. Yes, ma'am. Okay, our response time. You'll notice in 2025, our average response time, this is countywide, this is taken into every call that comes in, is 9 minutes and 7 seconds. That's trending downward, which is a good thing. In 2023, it was over 10 minutes, so we've dropped almost a minute and a half off of that response time in the last 2 years. That's what we really try to do, is strategically assign deputies to where that response time, we want to target always under 10 minutes if we can. Crash statistics. This is something that we see a lot of in our county. We have a lot of wreck reports, a lot of traffic. You'll notice countywide, there was 6,902 crashes countywide in 2025. The sheriff's office handled 2,846 of those, so almost over 41% of those crash reports countywide the sheriff's office handled. That's a lot. Now, keep in mind, not every sheriff's office even does crash reports, but we started doing that. Sheriff Cathy started doing that several years ago because there's not as many state troopers here as there used to be, and if it's in unincorporated Union County, who else is going to do it if the state troopers aren't there? So we started doing it as a service, sheriff did, because he doesn't want people sitting there waiting for 2 hours for a trooper to respond. Plus, if we're there having to direct traffic, it's just a service for the whole community. So you've really seen an uptick in that, but there's also a lot more traffic, a lot more people on the roads now. So that's where a lot of our time is spent, is on crash reports. Yes, ma'am. We'll move into investigations. All right, so this is something we're very proud of. We don't have 2025 numbers available yet. They're usually a year behind reporting these. But you'll notice the three different color codes to the far right, 2024. Violent crimes per 100,000 people. North Carolina was 388.4. Countywide, Union County was at 122.6, but the sheriff's office in our areas, we were at 42.14. That's a very low violent crime rate for a county our size. Keep in mind, we're the 8th largest county by population in the state of North Carolina. That speaks volumes about those preventive patrols we talked about earlier. This is where that's paying off. Those high visibility, that proactive police work, this is where it really pays dividends. That violent crime rate was something we're very proud of. Clearance rates. This is another one very proud of. So this is a percentage of violent crime clearance rates. In 2024, the sheriff's office cleared over 70% of violent crimes, and look at the state average is just barely over 26%. Our investigators, our detectives work very hard. When these cases get assigned to them, we use a lot of different, crime-fighting tools, technology, flock cameras, cameras that we have out in the community, a lot of databases that we subscribe to help solve crimes. But we're proud of that clearance rate, which is very high. Property crimes, just another metric we look at. This is per 100,000 people. Once again, to the far right column, the last year reported was 2024. North Carolina's average was 2,049. To the far right in the gray column, Union County, 478.77. That's within the sheriff's office. So again, very low crime rate according to what the state metrics are. We're still well below the state average. Clearance rate there, a little bit lower clearance rate on property crimes than it is violent crimes, but still we're way ahead of the state average with 35.92% clearance rate on property crimes, where the state's rate was 13.1. Now, this is another big initiative that Sheriff Cathy and the Board of County Commissioners have worked on, is making sure we had a dedicated school resource officer in every public school in Union County. We're almost there, but if you notice, these are color-coded by different grade levels, by elementary, middle, and high school. The far right column, last school year, those are the number of incident reports reported in the elementary schools in the blue, and then the middle school in orange, and then the gray are the high schools. But in total, there were 891 reported incidents in Union County Public Schools last year, down from 1,260 the year before. Drug-related arrest, 2025, we went back up a little bit, 574. That's with all of our drug arrests throughout the whole agency. So we still have a drug unit and a lot of deputies as well that are taking drugs off the road during some of these traffic stops. Now, this is something also that we've worked very hard on our death by distribution, these fentanyl-related drug overdoses. You'll notice we hit a peak in 2023. The orange line are drug-related deaths. Now, the blue column is just overdoses, but the orange is the death cases. We had 32 deaths, mostly fentanyl, in 2023. Last year, in 2025, we cut that in half. We're down to 15. We've been very aggressive, and we've made no secrets about that. In this county, we've targeted these distributors that are selling fentanyl that's leading to the death of people. If we can identify the source of that, and we can eliminate any and all other causes of death, we're going to charge you with death by distribution. It's a Class B2 felony. Carries a hefty prison sentence. So as a result of that, because our agency was one of the first to really go after these offenders, we successfully lobbied the North Carolina General Assembly to give us money for a medical examiner's office to be built here in Union County. It's a regional facility that's supposed to serve 9 counties. Our county is still working on construction for that facility, but hopefully it'll be up and running within the next 2 to 3 years. But we're already doing autopsies now in Union County at the old Atrium Union Hospital. So this is still a work in progress, but this goes hand in hand with these drug death cases. And just to give you a quick snapshot of administration, you can just go through these real quickly. That's our new Sheriff's Administration building that opened, of course, in October 2022. That was following a public safety bond referendum that was approved by voters in 2018. That's about a 62,000 square foot facility. That's just the administration piece. The old jail still sits behind that. That jail is almost 32 years old now, and it is in bad shape. Needs to be updated and greatly needs to be expanded. So that's something we're still working on, but we're proud of that new administration building that opened 3.5 years ago. We call these our mobile offices. So most of our deputies now, they're driving either sport SUVs or pickup trucks. Essentially, they work out of their cars. And this kind of gives you an interior look of what their car looks like. They got their computer, their radios, everything they need really to do their job, their printers. So when Deputy Wicker writes somebody a traffic citation, he can serve them right there on site and they can go on their merry way. But so everything they need essentially is in their cars, all their equipment, their firearms, everything they need to do their job is in those vehicles. And this just shows you kind of how we've grown position-wise, and we sort of track along with the county's population growth. If you look back in 2010 to the lower end of that column, we were at about 256 positions, and as the county's population has grown to nearly 270,000, we're now at nearly 381 positions. So we've kind of grown and tracked along that population growth line, and we're continuing to push for that. And this is the sheriff's organizational chart. That's kind of how we're set up across the board. We have 6 or 7 different divisions. Each division is led by a captain and/or civilian department head, which the only civilian head is the crime lab director. But our 6 captains oversee various bureaus. And you'll notice under the captain of operations, Captain Tyson is our captain of operations, but you'll see small town contracts at the very bottom of that. That's what Lieutenant May is over that. And so contracts, specifically Wesley Chapel, would fall in that line of command. Special Operations Bureau just kind of shows you what we look like. This is the whole bureau itself. Weddington currently has 5 dedicated deputies, Wesley Chapel with 1. Marvin has 2, Lake Park 2. Wingate came online with us last summer. They have 4. We also have our SHIELD unit. They're basically used to be the old warrant squad. Those guys are tactical officers that go out and serve our high-risk apprehensions, our active warrants, and they also work with narcotics and criminal investigations as well. We also have the K-9 unit there, along with our alcohol field enforcement team. So they're all under special operations. This is our town contracts. Again, I'll just reference those, but the largest is still Indian Trail. I think they're up to about 36 sworn deputies and 3 civilian positions. So Indian Trail is continuing to grow, but that relationship up there is working very, very well. And kind of to give you a little bit of idea of what some of these other towns with full-time police departments, their population and what their budget looks like. The left side of that, you'll see Monroe's estimated population is over 41,000. Their police budget is just under 20 million a year, 119 employees. And you can look at each of those other towns that have dedicated police departments, and then look at the towns to the right that contract for police services with the sheriff's office. Their population, along with the budget for that and the number of officers assigned to those towns, we believe that the towns that use our services and this contract relationships are getting a very good, price for what we're providing them. And the reason I show you this is not just, you don't get just the deputy assigned to those small towns, but you basically get the whole agency. You get the detectives if you have a violent crime, you get our crime scene investigators, you get technically every aspect of our agency, from our crime laboratory and everything we have to offer. You can go to the next one. Just to give you an idea how much it costs. So if you go to that the last line under contract deputy costs. So each of these contracts, essentially, the town pays 90%, the county absorbs the 10% of that. So if you'll look at the total cost for a 1 deputy, this was as of last year, it's about $133,891 for a contract deputy. Now, we amortize a lot of those operating and capital costs, whereas in the first line is the fully loaded deputy costs. Everything's paid up front. Those aren't amortized over a period of years. So that's about $242,000 per deputy. So when people say, well, they need to hire more deputies, it costs a lot of money. You hire one, you're looking at about $242,000 because you got to not only hire the person, you got to equip them, you got to pay for all their benefits, you got to buy that car, all the equipment, the cameras, everything that goes in it. So it costs quite a bit of money. Yes, ma'am.
What does fully loaded mean?
Means you pay for it all up front
Oh, okay.
instead of it's amortized over a number of years. And this kind of gives you what I'm talking about. Some of those amortized items that you'll look at there, like for example, on like the 5th line down is that vehicle, Chevrolet Tahoe. That's usually what we're buying now. Now we don't set these prices; these are state contract rates. But that Tahoe itself costs us $54,000, and that is before any of the equipment goes into it. So then if you add the equipment cost, that's another $32,000. Operating costs such as tires, fuel, all that, another $2,700. But that quantity, that next column, that's how it's amortized. Like that vehicle, we basically spread that $54,000 out over a period of 5 years for the towns. So it's $10,800 per year factored into that contract. And that's how that cost is basically split out in those amortized schedule. The bottom block down there are just these additional services that are included, but not essentially charged into that contract. And I mentioned some of those already, but you get the benefit of the whole agency when you contract with the sheriff's office. Yes, ma'am. Now we'll talk about Wesley Chapel specific. All right, see, these are some of the patrol events last year for Wesley Chapel. These were calls for service, that far right column under 2025. Calls for service that were assigned to the Wesley Chapel car. I think it was 270. Calls for service answered by all other sheriff's cars, 1,394. Self-initiated for the Wesley Chapel car, he had 2,388 self-initiated events. All other sheriff's cars that were working in the Wesley Chapel zone, 5,932. Just to give you some idea of the work that's being generated out here in Wesley Chapel. All right, first dispatch, the first to arrive. This number right here is very important. 2025 response times. You'll notice the response time for our Wesley Chapel car was 6.12 minutes, calls for service. When he wasn't working and any other unit had to answer a call for service in Wesley Chapel, you notice it was over a 2 minutes longer response time, 8.19 minutes. Now that goes back to that zone map we showed early on in the presentation because they're coming from other areas within Zone 4. So it's going to increase that response time a good little bit when you don't have a dedicated car working in Wesley Chapel. Incident reports, to give you an idea of what you were looking at last year. Part 1 crimes, there was 40 incidents reported last year here at Wesley Chapel. In Part 2 crimes, 163.
What is a Part 1 and Part 2 crime?
Part 1 essentially is crimes against person. Violent crimes, you don't want many of those. But I can get you the full list of what all your Part 1 crimes are, but most of those are crimes against person. Crimes, larceny from the person, things like that. Your Part 2 crimes are mostly property crimes.
Okay. Thank you.
Incident report, these are breaking, entering, and larceny. Far right column, you had 3 of those reported in Wesley Chapel last year, breaking and enter. Then larceny had 38 reports, which actually isn't that bad considering you've got a lot of retail right here.
Got one quick question.
Yes, sir.
These convictions, are these charges? Are these, so some of these may have not ended up actually being these at the end of the case, correct?
Correct. That's what was based on the report, the instant report. Now that doesn't include disposition. That's just how they were initially charged. DWI arrest that occurred inside of Wesley Chapel. I think there was that 4? Yeah, 2025. I see 4. Down from 2024 a good bit. This is again, this is something that we do a lot of. These crash reports. You'll see the gray diagonal line that goes up and down. That's the percentage of crashes that occurred in Wesley Chapel as compared to the whole county. So Wesley Chapel accounted for 7.62% of all county crashes countywide. Of those crashes that occurred here, the Wesley Chapel car worked 69 of those crashes. Other sheriff's cars worked the other 130. And that's the end of that. Yes, ma'am.
How many of those crashes was a Wesley Chapel resident at fault?
I couldn't tell you. We'd have to go back and pull every report to tell you that. We could get that for you. It would take quite a bit of research, but we could get that for you.
That data you could start keeping on an ongoing basis, so it'd be readily available?
You're asking of those involved, were they a resident of Wesley Chapel?
Yes. The ones who pay the taxes for Wesley Chapel.
We could probably capture that. So that's the presentation I had. I know there were questions that were submitted last week that you guys had that was kind of across the spectrum, but I wanted to start this conversation just with the sort of the year-end report and see if that heads off some of the questions, and then any additional questions that you might have. Between Lieutenant May, Captain Tyson, myself, we'll try to answer any of those questions that you might have. Yes, ma'am.
Of the 7.62 crashes, how did we compare to municipalities as far as the number of, because we've got some pretty heavy, major roads.
You do.
through here. How do we compare? Do you have any idea about that? I mean, it doesn't have to be like spot on, but I mean, just.
Well,
Yes.
I don't want to speculate as to how we're doing as far as the crashes in Wesley Chapel specific. But I know there's some heavily traveled roads where we see some intersections that I would consider hot spots. This is a hot spot right here at Waxhaw Indian Trail and Highway 84. But how it relates to the rest of the county, I mean, there are several hot spots across the county. But we could easily drill down into that if you wanted to look at that and put some kind of heat map together to kind of see where we measure up against others.
I'm always been curious about where our really dangerous intersections are.
Right.
Where our most of our traffic accidents occur.
Where are most of your crashes at there, Deputy Wicker?
84 Waxhaw Trail, before the roundabout, Potter at Wesley Chapel. We still have a few there. Newtown, up between Newtown and Lester Davis. Newtown, Waxhaw Trail. Shamwood, Newtown, Shamwood and Potter.
Wow, Newtown's okay.
Because in the morning time, like when school's in, it backs up from Cuthbertson all the way back, way past the Waxhaw Trail roundabout. And, people get in a hurry and they're trying to rush and cut through, and then they, that's pretty much all the hot spots.
And I've seen several down where people are trying to turn left on Jim Parker off 84 and they get rear end collisions there. So, I mean, it's kind of across the board. Yes, sir.
How many officers do you have right now in Zone 4?
In Zone 4, every patrol squad, when fully staffed, would have 3 assigned to Zone 4. Per squad, we have four county patrols, so usually 3 on duty at a time, assuming they're all working.
Okay. And then how does that compare to the other 3 zones?
Zone 4, is that our only zone? I'll let Captain Tyson go into that specifically, but
Yeah, typically your zone 1, your zone 2, and your zone 3, we like to run those with 2 people per zone. Like Chief Underwood said, typically our zone 4, run with 3, and that is a best case scenario for a 13-man county patrol squad.
the bottom line is on our county staffing, we don't have the deputies we need countywide. We've been asking for a long time to add to that, but again, the costs I know are significant. But when fully staffed, there's 13 on a county patrol squad. We're rarely fully staffed. There's usually somebody out on leave or, light duty or something, and sometimes we have absences. So, but the ideal situation, we would have 3 in Zone 4 most of the time.
So, and I apologize.
Sure, you're fine.
Sometimes numbers are slow.
Sure.
With me. So out of the 381 positions.
Yes, sir.
Am I understanding you correctly?
That's right.
Throughout the county right now, you have 12 officers that are on patrol that are not assigned to a municipality?
Well, they're assigned, the 13 that I mentioned are on a full county squad. Those are countywide response. Municipalities have their own, whether it's, if it's a sheriff's contracted town, then we have folks assigned to those towns. The 13 I'm referencing, they have countywide responsibility in the unincorporated areas. Does that make sense?
It does.
That doesn't count like Monroe Police, Waxhaw Police, Stallings, Marshall, those other municipalities.
So budget-wise, you say you've requested funds for additional deputies. Typically, how does the county fund your annual budget request?
Well, good question. It works different ways year to year. We sit down as a command staff and we talk about our needs, what are our greatest needs, and we submit our high priority requests, things that we feel that we must have to maintain our level of service. And And then we also have things that we're trying to get ahead of, the positions that we need. Then we go meet with our county management team and we submit those requests to them. Then ultimately, they take it to the Board of County Commissioners, and then whatever they submit to the board approves it or they don't.
Did they approve 100% of it last budget cycle?
No, they did not. They
Do you get any
maintain.
separate state funding?
We do not get no, we do not get anything from the state. We've applied for another Governor's Highway Safety grant for more personnel within the crime laboratory. We just submitted that application, but we don't get any funding from the state, not for sheriff's personnel.
Deputy Underwood, of the 270 calls for service in Wesley Chapel last year, and Brandon, it may be nothing more than a guess at this point, but how many of those were related to commercial businesses?
I'll let you answer that since you're the one who took most of the reports.
Generally, I take the Target, Food Line, occasionally Raccoon Shoes. Those are generally the three, they're one of the two last year, I would say.
So of the 270, half,
I'd say
More
the
than half.
majority of them are probably commercial.
most of them?
90%?
Give or take. Target's the more popular one.
You also have to factor in your traffic crashes and your calls for service. The traffic crash comes through a 911 call, which is treated as a call for service at that point. So once again, we've seen our traffic crash numbers increase year over year. Those are, once again, calls for service. When you talk about commercial businesses, it's usually an after-hours alarm, there may be a larceny call. With the increased commercial growth, as you can see right outside, we expect that to increase year over year as development continues. But once again, it's a full-service law enforcement spectrum. It may be on a wreck right now, and it may be on a commercial or residential alarm 10 minutes from now. You just never know where the day can take.
So based off that statement, then we should subtract the 69 from the 270 to get 201 is how many calls you're making that are not traffic related? Is how many you took, Deputy Wicker?
Traffic collisions, yes, sir. Now, as far as traffic stops, things like that, that's gonna go into your self-initiated events. And, that's, one thing that we were gonna get back into as we continued, some of the more direct questions you all had is, crime reporting monthly. I know a lot of folks, their questions dealt with not receiving a monthly report. And I'd like to personally take accountability for that. That's on me, and we're gonna fix that. Starting next month, we'll have a monthly 30-day snapshot of a breakdown of law enforcement calls for service by event. So it's a traffic stop, traffic crashes, theft, anything like that. It will show you a digit beside or a number beside that that will tell you exactly what happened that month. And Chief, I ain't trying to steal your thunder. One thing I will say, and I think I want to kind of start this second portion with this, is I can't speak enough about how much Deputy Wicker is doing to really be that visible presence out there. He is probably one of our lead crash investigators in the sheriff's office. And if you've never been on 84 at 8 o'clock in the morning and there's a wreck right there at Chamwood where it shuts the whole road down, that makes life terrible for everybody. If Deputy Wicker was not out there investigating those crashes, looking at maybe an hour and a half response time for the highway patrol, and then it really gobs things up. You have to excuse me, I'm just no country boy from Unionville, so gobs is the word I use. But he's there within a couple of minutes, he's getting that road cleared, and I just can't speak enough to the work he's doing out here on it. You've seen, like I said, where his crash investigation numbers are. I'll also note that on a crash investigation, you take that initial report on the scene, depending on if you have to have a tow truck or not, you may be there 30 minutes. After that, it takes you about 30 minutes to an hour to do a full crash report. So a lot of times as a supervisor, I hear, why is that car sitting in the parking lot all the time? Well, there's a solid chance he's in there knocking out that crash report so that your insurance will actually pay out the damages on your car and get your car fixed, things like that. We try to get those in a timely manner. But I wanted to address, Chief, I
Go ahead.
do this after the fact. Wanted to address a few of the questions and just kind of as a general response, and we can try to break them down from there. Like I said, and I'm just looking at notes on my phone. I'm not question about deputy exposure, about the Village of Wesley Chapel deputy being seen and known that he's in the community. And first and foremost, we got just a little over 50 questions last week from the board. And initially I was like, whoa, that's a lot of questions and that's a lot of information to pull. But as I thought about that for a few minutes, I was actually pretty impressed because I said, you know what, these councilmen and councilwomen and staff, they're interested in what law enforcement's doing. And I saw it as more of a sign of support than I did anything else. And I just want to stop and say thank you for that. Because what it did is it made us ask some questions to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Deputy Wicker is president of our National Night Out. His car is fully marked. It says Village of Wesley Chapel at the bottom. For our touch truck events, things like that, he's out there. He's in and around these businesses pretty much every day. And so when we talk about the Village of Wesley Chapel car exposure, we are always welcoming anyone that has an opportunity for us to come out and meet with the community, whether it be, you know, a daycare community event, anything like that. We encourage folks to call us because we want to be part of that. We want to be part of this community because we are part of this community. We live here in Union County, most of us. But as far as exposure, like I said, you'll see his car is clearly marked, and we are out doing these public events. You know, for some folks that just don't know, I don't know how you answer that question of how to tell everybody that you have a deputy here in Wesley Chapel, other than just continuing to be just out there in the community, turning those blue lights on. So, once again, can't speak enough about his work and the work that our other deputies are doing, our Zone 4 deputies. From time to time, our wedding deputies step over and help a little bit in high, you know, emergency calls for service. I'd also like to highlight that when Deputy Wicker is on, there's often situations that require 2 or more deputies to respond to. So that Zone 4 car doesn't just respond when there's an emergency or you know, Deputy Wicker's not on duty. The Zone 4 car responds as backup. So when you look at those numbers and you think that there's a 2 to 3 minute response time gap, we've got one deputy on scene at maybe an emergency call, and his closest backup's a couple minutes behind, which we try to always train and prepare our deputies for any situation. They do a great job, but you're still receiving the benefits of the county tax dollar in addition to the work and the support that you've already put in with contracting the one deputy. So I just wanted to highlight that. Our Zone 4 guys and girls are great. We're going to talk about the monthly reports and attendance. I'm going to make sure that we have a deputy here at every meeting, at the meeting, whether it's myself, whether it's Deputy Wicker or another sheriff's deputy. We want to be here every month to answer your questions. That's something that we feel like is a commitment to you all. And along with those reports, we want to be here to answer your questions. That way, you know, we don't have a bunch of questions built up. And I've always told people that I may not know the answer right offhand, but I'll find you an answer. So that may be the question in the future that we deal with. Obviously, based on these statistics, you know, everybody says, are we in a safe community? You know, where are the hot spots? Is there violent crime in our community? Village of West Chapel is a very safe community. Chief's already hit on that. I'll just continue to hit on that as well. It's a very safe community. If you want to know my personal belief on what I think is the largest law enforcement activity in this area, it's probably traffic crashes. And once again, with the density of the population, it has the largest effect on the population because once again, when Weddington Road is shut down, this area gridlocks. So can we stop traffic crashes? I wish we could, but we probably cannot. Are they going to continue to increase year over year with additional population and additional commercial growth? Stats would tell us that, right? Just simple common sense would tell us that. So what we're continuing to do is the deputies are in this area are trained crash investigators. We're also increasing our traffic enforcement throughout the area. A lot of times traffic crashes are speed driven or distracted driving or impaired driving. So we're continuing to, just on my way into this meeting today, Deputy Wicker had somebody stopped on the side of the road, and I'm sure they were just thrilled about the whole situation. But we're out there every day. We're running LiDAR, we're running planned checkpoints, things like that in this area to try to really keep those numbers down if we can. You know, usually if somebody sees that big sheriff's billboard on the side of that car, they immediately hit the brakes. Everybody in the room is probably guilty of that. When you see the police car, you hit the brakes. Sometimes I'm in my police car, I see another police car, and I still hit the brakes. You know, it's a deterrent. As the chief said earlier, we have what we call cruise lights. And I tell these guys all the time, just park somewhere, put your cruise lights on when you're doing a report. It's steady blue lights. And it's a wonder that we haven't had to have 100 bumpers replaced. People just slam on them brakes. So it's a deterrent, and ultimately, Sheriff Kathy's approach and our approach here is we don't want to address crime after it occurs. We want to try to prevent it. And I think that's the best way of doing it. And with that, like I said, it's important to do these snapshots every year to show you what it looks like in this area. There was a lot of questions on dealing with flock cameras and how they're used and how the accountability is maintained in these situations. And so, once again, I didn't necessarily know all the answers for the residential side of flock because flock is broken down into two organizations. They've got the same company, but they've got a residential side and they've got a law enforcement side, and the representatives are different. So the user platform is different, the abilities are different. I called flock and I said, hey, can you tell me about the event logs and the maintenance of accountability records, things like that for flock usage on the residential side? And she asked me the account name, and I said the Village of Wesley Chapel. And she said currently that no one has signed up has a user account on the residential side for the Village of Wesley Chapel. So what I told her that we should do is that's something I could let you all know this evening, and then at some point, we could all come together and do a training session that flock would offer and allow you to register your account. Because if you're a member of the staff or a member of local government, you can have a user account. Now, that doesn't mean on the civilian side that you can just go run your neighbor's tag in flock just to see how many times they went to the Harris Teeter, right? Because that's got bad idea all over it, in my opinion. But if, for instance, Ms. Bailey, Mayor Pro Tem Bailey, if she logged onto the flock system and checked something within the park, let's say you have flock said that they could set up what they call a hot list for the flock cameras in Dogwood Park. And let's say that we banned John Smith from coming to the park, and his license plate was ABC 1234, North Carolina. And you can set up a hot list in the flock system on the residential side. And if that ABC 1234 tag hits on that camera again, it would notify you on the residential or the civilian side of that. Now, once again, if Ms. Bailey, I'm just going to use you here as an example. If Mayor Pro Tem Bailey logs on, it'll show that she logged on at today's date and today's time and looked at that tag, and that's in the event log. Law enforcement also maintains an event log on our side, but as you can imagine, the law enforcement side is hooked to the National Crime Information Center, NCIC, and it gives us more accessibility to do the training and the certifications that we hold. That way you don't just have everybody and anybody that can register for a flock account just being able to pull all this personal information. So there is accountability on the law enforcement side. General knowledge about flock cameras. We're not taking pictures of the drivers in the cars. We're not taking pictures of, you eating your lunch as you're driving by the camera or, doing something that you'd be more embarrassed about or something like that. It is literally capturing the rear of the car, and it's getting the license plate. It may get whether it's a Ford or a Chevrolet, it may get the color of the car. But flock cameras have been instrumental in our clearance. You saw those clearance rates, and I tell you, that's nothing to, once again, I'm just going to use my country tongue here, that's nothing to shake a stick at, folks. That's huge, that they're clearing these crimes at this rate, so much higher above the state. And I will say that flock has been a significant tool that we've used to do that. Most recently, a homicide on Indian Trail at the Taco Bell. I'm sure everybody heard about it. It was all over the news. We were able to identify, or our detective, I wasn't a part of that group, but our detectives were able to identify and arrest that suspect in less than 18, 20 hours based on the usage of the flock cameras. Locally, what does it mean to you? I think everybody knows we had some forced entry car break-ins in Dogwood Park several years back where they were smashing glass, grabbing property out. Flock cameras go in, stopped, right? Okay, if it happens tomorrow, I gotta take the report, so I just jinxed it, right? But those cameras go up, crime leaves. So it really, once again, at that point, the village realized, hey, this is a problem. You guys, we're willing to fund those cameras, and they're fantastic.
So, just a question on that. So Wesley Chapel funds the cameras. We don't have a user account, but the sheriff's office has free access and use of the Wesley Chapel cameras?
Yes,
Ma'am. So,
For any purpose that you choose to use them for?
we do.
Do you have a privacy policy for how you use our
We
cameras?
use them for investigative purposes only. All,
Do you charge them, use them across other law enforcement agencies or federal agencies?
do we charge them?
Do you use them across other
Yes.
federal agencies?
We use them across we have access to a whole network nationwide of flock. That's the beauty of it.
Well, I understand that concept. My question is specifically, is our data from our park being used to feed in, for example, immigration customs enforcement's use of
We're not
those?
using them.
Yes, they are.
Well, I
Wall
can't,
Street Journal article last week.
I don't know about Wall Street Journal, ma'am. I'm telling you what we do in Union County. I don't know what ICE is doing with flock camera systems. I don't know what that, because it's
That
actually
not
flock.
knowing is my concern.
Well.
We should know it's our data, where it's being used and how it's being
If it's
used.
your data, you should access it yourself and set up a user
Then
account.
we should access it and not you. Is that, if it's our data?
If you don't want us to have access to it as a crime fighting tool, I mean, that would be your decision, but not a very wise one, though.
I behold.
Yeah, so we share access, like the chief said, we share access across the United States. I could give you other examples where we solved a kidnapping case last year, a murder case 2 years ago, on the fact that we were able to track a car across the state. Once again, for your data in Wesley Chapel at Dogwood Park to go to someone else, permissions would have to be granted by you for that. You all, or the previous board, or whoever made the decision in the past, allowed the sheriff's office to have access to those cameras' data for what we currently use. And once again, this is not for private purposes, this is not for personal gain. That's everything that we do is logged, and it goes to, it's used as a crime fighting tool, just like our flashlights, our databases, anything like that. Just another tool in the tool belt to solve these crimes. So, as the chief said, whether or not you want to continue to share that information with the sheriff's office, that would limit our ability in cases like that to investigate things that happen in Dogwood Park. That's a decision you all have to make. So,
Can we get a copy of the agreement that we signed with the sheriff's office for the use of the flock
there's not a
cameras?
signed agreement with that. What it is it goes through an email system, and it says, hey, will you allow the Union County Sheriff's Office? Your signed agreement is with Flock Safety.
Oh, that's what I'm getting at.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there some sort of document that was signed?
I would have to check with town staff on that, because once again, the sheriff's office is mentioned nowhere in your contract with Flock. It is strictly between the Village of Wesley Chapel and Flock Safety, and access is given.
Well, I believe when we did the contract, it was for all law enforcement. So that's it.
Might be time to revisit that.
You got a question, ma'am?
Well, I personally feel like those cameras should be able, you should be able to use those cameras, anybody that's in law enforcement, ICE or anybody who's in law enforcement, who is trying to do what is right in our country. They should be able to use anything, those cameras or anything. I mean, that's the, we're fighting a big fight here.
Well, if you want to live in a surveillance state, I guess you're right.
Are you gentlemen able to provide how many, like the statistics around what the sheriff's county has or what the sheriff's department has used the flock cameras for, our flock cameras?
The flock cameras, I don't want to speak. We could probably get that information. I'm sure that information is available. We could look at that. I could tell you tomorrow what we could access on that, and how often it's been accessed.
I'd appreciate that. And then is there a way to set up, and again, please forgive me, I'm very
Sure.
nascent with the flock system. Is there a way to set up calls? Because I know that one of the bigger complaints that I've heard since being here is people being in the park after dark,
Right.
especially in the summertime, teenagers in there going in, finding beer bottles, stuff like that. We don't want to encourage that type of behavior in the park. So if there's a way that you guys could get flagged that says, hey, there's a car in the park after sunset, at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, is there a way for that to be set up for you guys to be notified of that, and then you guys can dispatch?
Would that be
If there's
part of those
available
hot
vehicle.
calls? I think
Yeah,
you'd
so
have
that's
to
what I
set
talked
the
to Flock
system.
Today, I asked them specifically about that question. And the lady that I talked to on the civilian side, they had said that they had never been asked about providing just motion notification, vehicle motion notification to a residential client. That was their answer that Flock gave me. And I said, well, the Village of West Chapel is interested in that because they have someone that could basically triage the need, whether or not it was a need for 911 to respond to, instead of deputies just immediately going, let's just say it was a public works truck or something like that in the park, and, we drive across the county for it, it would really be nothing. And she said that what they were gonna do is they were gonna talk with the program developers, and they were gonna get back to it. And then, so, like I said, that concern has been heard, and, we definitely, once again, months back, we talked about Superstar here being the guy that gets the notifications, and he can kind of triage those as needed, and then we can dispatch deputies from that point. But once again, like I said, it's a great tool that we use, and it helps us out a great deal. Just 2 or 3 more things for me that I had, and then we'll just open it up for any other questions. As I've said already, and I'll say again, what we're doing is working, and I think that I would hope at least that you all would agree with that based on the statistics that you've been provided today, and the fact that we can all go home and feel safe in our homes. The patrol strategies, the patrol assignments that we have, they're not based off of a whim, they're based on data, they're based on prior call for service data, best response times, just most effective usage of the personnel that we have. One of the questions that I received from the board last week was, can we have input on the patrol strategy used and the hours worked by the deputy assigned to Wesley Chapel? And as a general answer to that question, at the end of this meeting, I'm happy, if you don't already have it, what I'd like to do is give you each my personal or my work cell phone number. Because if you ever have concerns about the patrol strategies or the hours worked, or you're worried about accountability of the deputy, one of the questions was, how do we know that the deputy's working the hours that we're paying him to work? Well, I would hope that concern wouldn't be there, but if it is there, I'm happy to answer that question. I'm happy to address any concerns you may have in real time. If you call me and say, hey, Lieutenant May, we've noticed that red pickup trucks in the park, guys acting strange, can you have somebody go check on that? Or if there's increased traffic enforcement needed on, Waxahachie Trail, Newtown, or wherever, I want you to call me and I want you to share that with me. So in real time, I can get on the phone with Deputy Wicker and guys like him, and girls like him, and say, hey, this is where we need to spend some extra time because this is a resident focus. As far as ink on paper, this is what the deputy is going to do. My suggestion, my advice in that question would be to the system's working, the sheriff is based his system, and our methods of operation based on a proven method that works. And like I said, well, I'm not trying to toot our own horn or anything like that, but it does work. We've got one of the safest communities in this area. We've got safest county in this area. We live in one of the safest communities within it. So as far as if you have questions, if you feel like your deputy needs to work a different set of hours per se, his hours are determined by peak call times for service, which are analyzed year over year. Okay, so if this year, and I'll just tell you, if you're looking at this year, peak call for service times for the village of Wesley Chapel are 8 to 5. You would think it'd be midnight, but it's not. It's 8 to 5. About 8 o'clock in the morning, you see a significant spike, and you see another spike at 5 o'clock. And once it comes down from that spike at 8 o'clock, it just kind of midlines all day long, and then 3 to 5, you see it spike again. Once again, what is that? That's people going to work, it's people coming home from work. Your traffic crashes, your traffic enforcement, stuff like that that's when that's happening. So Deputy Wicker's actually transitioning out of a need, because we see that he normally works a 6 to 4 days a week. That's what he's working currently. But we analyzed the peak call for service times for 2024, and we said, hey, we need to make an adjustment there. So now he will be working at 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And that will provide him the most opportunity to be there to those peak call times for service. So, in reality, you pay for a service through this contract. You pay for extra law enforcement services. And, I can't remember the old TV ad. It was a cooking device, and they used to say, set it and forget it. Because, and I was a kid when that came out. But ultimately, we want you as a board, we want all the residents to be involved. We want your input, we want your suggestions. And if you have complaints or concerns, we want those as well, because that's how we get better. But ultimately, what we want you to do is rest assured that the money you're spending, the money the residents are spending, is being well spent, and then we're managing that for you. Like I said, we're committed to these monthly stats to you, committed to the monthly attendance at the meetings, to answer questions, and I'm always available. I have deputies working 24/7, so even when I'm off, my phone is on, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Let's see. I think I've tried to address everything. Like I said, there's several of my responses. It took 3 or 4 questions in the same. If you have other specific questions that you submitted that either myself or none of the representatives in attendance have answered, we're happy to take those at this time.
I'd like to say, I'd like to personally thank each of you for your work and what you do respect law enforcement sometimes, you know, and it's just, it really makes me angry. As far as Deputy Whipper, I have never asked him a question he hasn't had a very good answer for. I've enjoyed working with him. He's a good guy. And you know, I appreciate your knowledge, and I appreciate us having you. As far as the information that you're gonna get us, which I'm really excited about, as a councilman, I want to be able to know as much detail as I can about different areas. You know, for example, what neighborhoods have the most crime reports? What you know, stores are getting broken into mostly? You know, what areas are the crashes there's, you know, so just having a bunch of numbers doesn't really give me the detail that I'd like. I don't even know if it's possible to ask for the kind of detail that I'm asking, because I know you guys have got a lot to do without having to do, you know, that kind of in detail research. But that's, if there's any way to include maybe just the most, not like the least, you know, we don't have many calls from Price Mill or whatever, but we do have from this neighborhood. Anything that you can, that would just give us some knowledge as to where the troubled areas are. And
Can I say one thing in response to that? So on our website, ucso.us, every morning, I think it's at 7 a.m., it uploads all the incident reports from the past 24 hours. And you can look across the county, you can zone into Wesley Chapel. You can see if there's an incident report made, and you can click on it to tell you what type of report that it was.
really,
Yeah, it's there, it's public record.
It's under the header of crime mapping software.
Crime map, it's on the front page of the website.
wow, that's really neat.
Crime mapping tool, it's there, it uploads, updates every day at 7 a.m.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
While we're on the topic of communication, I can't leave out the public information officer here. Lieutenant Winfrey, like I said, in the blue jacket, he's the one, and you're not supposed to tell people who are behind this, but he's behind a lot of the Facebook posts that the sheriff's office put out, him and his team. And if there's one thing that the sheriff's office, or Sheriff Kathy strives, is transparency within the community and constant communication. So anything big that's happening in this area, then by all means, it's gonna be out there on social media. We've got an app that's free to download. You don't have to enter in your information. And, just last week with the Highway 74 closure in Wingate for the water main break, it hit my phone like a text message. And so I knew right then, hey, you know, I need to avoid this area. So if any of the residents, if any of the board are not currently following us on social media or have that app, I would encourage you to get that. It also, and I'll just sell it a little bit, if you're bored and you just want to see who got arrested, or, you know, if you're looking for an animal, a new cat or a dog, you know, like, it has the adopting animals on there, because once again, the sheriff's office is a full service law enforcement agency, and we've got responsibilities everywhere. So the app is a great tool for us to use.
And we can find that app by going on your website, and that app will be there, or how?
No,
do
it would
we-
be in your app store on your phone, and you just type in Union County Sheriff's Office NC. And you'll see a black background with a gold 5-pointed star, kind of looks like mine. And you'll, well, the gold one looks like his. But that's where you'll find our app. But there is a Union County, South Carolina, so make sure you get North
I
Carolina.
know.
If not, you'll be informed on something.
Just like there's a Wesley Chapel, Florida.
But thank you for the support.
You're
and the
welcome.
question.
Are there any other questions or concerns that we didn't, I know we've thrown a lot at you. I know these numbers are a lot. There's some numbers, but we're trying to give you some.
They're very interesting, and
I appreciate the great detail that you went into
Yeah.
the chapel numbers, at least from the past presentations that I've been able to look up and see. I do have one more question.
Yes, sir.
You've done a great job of answering the rest of my questions and working your way through the email. Now, luckily enough, we've not encountered this issue before. We've had to have a large-scale law enforcement activity within the village of Wesley Chapel, you know, such as a SWAT call-out or anything else like that. But is there a policy that the sheriff's department has right now to keep, you know, either one of us informed, such as the mayor, or any of us involved if there is some kind of activity like that, so that we are aware of what's going on in case if we do have to, you know, when we're responding back to constituents and like, hey, why is my neighborhood on total lockdown? It's like, you know, obviously our first point is point you to the Union County Sheriff's Department.
Sure.
But it always helps if we have some kind of line or like it's this kind of activity, so we can provide that information in real time to our residents when they're coming out.
I'll be happy to tell you that we'll be more than happy to do that. It's not really a policy that we do that, but some of the towns we contract with, we have an MOU that sort of sets out some of the expectations that we try to, basically we'll strive to do this, and in addition to what the contract says, an open line of communication, that's not unreasonable to ask that. We can do that. If we have something, whoever that point of contact is, if it's you, Madam Mayor, whoever it is, or whoever you want, that.
I'm not gonna volunteer because I know
Okay.
your plate is.
But if we have but thankfully you haven't had a significant event like that, and I hope you don't. But certainly it's not unreasonable to ask that we let one of you know so you can communicate with one another and your constituents, say, hey, this is what this was.
I'd be happy to volunteer for that position.
I'd rather have that in place before we need it than
We
God
can,
forbid if we
we can
ever do
certainly
need
do
it.
that, though, if we just know who that point of contact is.
And adding to that, my phone rings all day long, and I don't mind it not one bit, because once again, it shows me that the people in Union County care about what we're doing. But normally my phone rings from other small towns, if there's more than 3 patrol cars with their blue lights on anywhere, they say, hey, what's going on this street or that street? Folks, I'm happy to take that call, because I know if you're calling me, you're probably getting calls from 5 or 10 other people. And so I'm happy to disseminate that truthful information to you so that we can, social media is a great tool, okay? But social media can also be our worst enemy. So if we don't get accurate information out there quickly, then everybody starts making up their own story, which that's why we have Lieutenant Winfrey. They do an excellent job.
And that is another purpose of having that PIO function, is that when there is a large law enforcement presence, we see it in circulation. People are speculating as what all the police are doing here or there. Pretty quickly, he's gonna put a message out there. And it's coming from ours on our sheriff's office Facebook page. You're gonna see what we can share. If it's still an ongoing, we can't give all the details, but we can tell you kind of what the nature of the call is.
So at the end of the meeting, if you all, it doesn't have to be tonight, and it can be multiple folks, but if we can exchange information if I don't already have it, I'll be happy to share with you anything that's large scale. Like I said earlier, we do conduct proactive. Proactive is a word we use a lot around the sheriff's office. It's a word the chief uses and the captain uses a great deal. They want us to be proactive, and that means go out there and find the crime and stop it before it can hurt anything. Or just go out there and be seen. So we are conducting various checkpoints in our area. We are conducting enforced traffic saturations, which mean a large number of deputies in one area just simply trying to be seen and stop that criminal activity before it begins. Normally, before we do something like that, that is not a call we would make. You know, if we were gonna go arrest a violent criminal at their house tomorrow morning, we probably wouldn't share that beforehand. Because listen, we love you, we love you, thank you for the support, and I just like to think I can trust the whole world, but you know, I just hate for that to get leaving our deputies be in danger.
Yeah, of course,
So
yeah.
after we take the bad guy into custody or something like that, then we will probably always call and say, hey, just so you know, this happened this morning. Also in the past, and I'll just throw it out there, Captain may shake his head when I say this, but you ever want to jump in a patrol car and just see what we do? There's a waiver you got to sign that says that if you stump your toe that you won't sue the sheriff's office, but some of our newer council folks out in Marvin are taking advantage of that in the next couple of weeks. Just like I said, it's kind of difficult to tell you about what these folks do, but it's a little bit easier to show you. So we, once again, it's another door with us, open line of communication. And please just know that your deputy and all the deputies of the Union County Sheriff's Office will continue to strive to do the right thing and provide the best service possible. So any questions you ever have, please call.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I'm gonna put on mine and John's to-do list to get that flock account signed up and get our notifications running. Sure.
So I know the sheriff's office has advocated for a long time that Wesley Chapel should have a second contract deputy. I met Sheriff Gaffney 2 years ago at campaign event. I think that was the second thing he said to me. But, and thank you for, this was a great presentation. So I can do the math, I know what it would cost me as a taxpayer, but what benefit would I get as a taxpayer?
You get more dedicated coverage, because essentially, there are no gaps when you don't have your dedicated deputy here. You have to rely upon the response from another deputy.
So that's the difference between 6 minutes and 8 minutes?
Exactly. And it's a hot call, it's a crime in progress. That 2 minutes, it seems like an eternity if you're waiting for that officer to get there. So that's, you just get that more dedicated, presence, more coverage.
I'm glad you asked that question, actually. I'm just gonna, just one more minute, because I believe it's sitting down speaking, folks. It's a great question. One of the questions that someone had was, if additional deputies are funded, would their schedules flex, or would their schedules exceed the current time by Deputy Wicker? The answer to that is yes. Right now, AB rotational works one day, A in the morning, B at night, or B in the morning, A at night, however that rotation is. CD works the next day, or whatever their schedule is for that. But once you have a day shift, you have a night shift. And so ideally, if there was ever a situation where there was a deputy on either AB, either on CD, or one on AB and CD, well, he's already covering us from 8 to 5, right? So those deputies would overlap or flex out to provide more dedicated service during more hours of the day. The goal would ultimately be to never have a moment in Wesley Chapel where a dedicated Village of Wesley Chapel deputy was not on duty. But obviously with staffing concerns, you all have you high answer taxpayers, I understand that. But like I said, as we continue to see growth, we do expect criminal acts in our area and enforcement needs to increase. Growth brings it. So, so we're here to answer any questions or provide any guidance if you see. So thank you for the question.
So I appreciate that answer. That was one of the questions I posited to the team. The follow-up to that, though, is like, and this might be in the contract, so please forgive me if this is known, but when Deputy Wickard's on PTO, much-deserved PTO, are we covered? Do we have another deputy that flexes in and covers his off time, his PTO time, whatever, so we still have that 40 hours a week that we're paying for, or is it just we're out of luck that week?
No, absolutely. And that falls back to me in my job. If Deputy Wicker is out, and he's a big fisherman, if you didn't know that. If Deputy Wicker is out in the creek fishing somewhere, I either step in and help cover that area, or what a lot of times we'll do is we give overtime opportunities to our other patrol deputies, other contract deputies to come in on their day off and to work these towns. But once again, normally, most of the time, what I do is I realize, hey, Deputy Wicker's out today, I need to be in Wesley Chapel throughout the day today. So that's normally, I pick that slack up. So it's a hard mantle to carry, trying to fill in for this guy when he's not around, but I do my best. So you do continue to have that coverage during that 40-hour window, in addition to the other coverage you get from, like I said, if you look at the stats, like our Weddington cars, they came in, our Marvin car came into Wesley Chapel for a few calls last year. Weddington, even though the Village of Wesley Chapel doesn't pay for any of those deputies, Weddington answered about 5% of our Wesley Chapel calls last year. So, once again, it's one team, one fight for us. We're all common, the goal is to keep the community safe. So, but great questions.
I'm curious about one thing. There's a deputy that lives in my neighborhood, and obviously, our deputy, Brandon is, but, is there any philosophy about your deputies living in the communities that they are assigned to? To make it easier on them so they can, go home and just cross the street and, they're more absorbed in their neighborhood, they know their neighbors, and, I was just curious about that.
It's hard to, you can't really implement that and make that a policy anymore because it's, with the cost of housing in Union County, what it is, it's expensive. It costs a lot of money to live here. And now some of our folks do or may live in the communities where they actually are assigned. Others, we have some that live out of county.
Oh, okay.
That don't even live in Union County. But for the most part, the vast majority of our folks live in the Union County, but not necessarily in the area where they work.
Okay.
But now if they work in a municipality like Deputy Wicker, he doesn't live in Wesley Chapel, but there are others who do live here.
Right.
They don't necessarily work here, but they live in Wesley Chapel. So you still got that visibility of other deputies. Their cars are here. They're still, visiting some of the restaurants and Chick-fil-A or Dunkin' Donuts, places like that. They're still in the community.
I just wondered if the officers would prefer to live closer to it when they're zoned, or when the SROs, when in the schools, if feasible, if that's something that.
It would be an ideal, perfect world, but a lot of our guys, because we're a pretty large agency now,
Right.
there's a lot of movement, and so within 2 years, they may be in a different assignment.
Oh, yeah.
So it's hard to really stay static for a very long period of time.
Just my curiosity.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that coin, you write somebody a speeding ticket, and then you go home and see them at the community pool. Makes for a really awkward encounter. So I think there's an argument made from both sides. Me
Yeah,
personally,
I can
used to
see
live in
that.
St. John's Forest when I was younger, younger and married, and young family, and I took some guys to jail, and I was playing pool with my daughter in my swimming trunks, where I had no means of protection other than just my swimming trunks. And a couple of guys that I just locked up, they try to walk in, it's a really awkward encounter. So there is two sides to that argument. So I figured I'd at least share the other side, you know.
I hadn't thought about that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time. And just so you know, a couple years ago, I asked Deputy Wicker what his strangest excuse was for being pulled for speeding and not getting a ticket. And he said it was, "But I'm the mayor."
You don't know anything about that, do you?
Nope, that was before me. But thank you for coming. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Especially Brent.
And I will pass out Lieutenant May's contact information, and y'all can email if you have additional questions that come up.
Those other questions, and I'm sorry, those additional questions you had are things you requested. If you'll just email that to one of us, we'll get that back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. So that leads us to the finance officer report.
So, January month close is still in progress, so we don't have that yet, don't have an update yet on our audit, which should be finished by the end of the month. I'll let you know as soon as we do hear more on that. Item B on the agenda is we've received a request to increase the rates from Hamilton, Stevens, Still, and Martin. And it's my understanding that the rates that we're currently paying are the rates we have paid forever, that there's not been a rate increase. And so have requested a rate increase, pretty reasonable rate increase from general legal work for $175 an hour, $200 an hour, and to increase the time at council meeting from $350 for 2 hours to $400 for 2 hours. And we have sufficient money in the budget to cover this increase.
That's
So
pretty reasonable.
if that's something that council would like to do, I could have a motion.
You want to make a motion?
Can you please repeat what the rate was for the in-council
It
meeting?
was in the notes.
What was in the notes?
Yeah, I think 175 to 200, and then 350 to 400.
50, thank you. I just missed that.
That's okay. No, sometimes easier to read than hear.
Yeah, I missed it in here, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I make a motion that we make those changes. Do I have to go more specific?
As recommended
As
by
recommended
finance officer
by our
Bailey.
finance officer.
I'll second that.
But I have a question. Is this a yearly contract, or is this open-ended until
To
further
my
notice?
knowledge, we do not have an annual contract. We just have a prolonged agreement, apparently, that he's going to keep showing up.
So I'm going to assume, I'm going to try to answer this, that he probably has a letter of engagement with us that is open-ended, that either one of us can dictate the end of it at the time that we deem necessary.
Yeah, you can tell me not to show up anytime you want. Somewhere 15 years ago, and at some point, I don't remember when, at some point, there was an agreed upon, you'll pay me to come for 2 hours of a meeting, and there was that fixed fee, which is based on 2 hours of the $175 an hour, which was the rate that was set in place. I don't even remember how, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I don't know. 10 years ago.
Yeah, you've been around a long time.
I'm getting too old at this point to remember timelines like that.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All unanimous?
The next item is a need approval for budget amendment. So just a little bit of background. So when we look at our budget, which would be easier if I actually had month-end closure reports for January, but I don't. None of our departments, such as administration, planning and development, parks, and rec, should ever be negative. And within each one of those departments, we have some ability, or I have actually flexibility per the ordinance to move some funds around. But at the end of the day, we really want to keep those fully funded. And so what you should do is within a department or an account, you use extra funds within that first before you go to contingency. And then you use contingency before you go to the unassigned fund balance. So that's kind of how you do it to maintain your contingency, so that you wouldn't just go pull from contingency to fulfill a new request if there's actually money within the department or the budget. And some of that's what we've done in the past, which is not necessarily best practice. And so the majority of these items are items that were either unbudgeted or under budgeted. So if you remember, we went through a software transition in February last year, and the way that data moved into the new software, generalizations, it was really difficult to fully understand all the cost and everything else for it. So I'm not surprised that some of these are some puts and takes we needed to do, some things that were missed for that. And so in order to make sure that I can continue to approve pre-audit approval and audit and pay signed checks, I have to ensure there's enough funds in each department to cover all of those expenses. So that's why I'm asking you tonight for these approvals. So it includes moving $8,200 from the Parks and Rec part-time wages line item to Parks and Rec ledgers, which was unbudgeted in Parks and Recreation. To move $1,600 from the Parks and Rec special activities line item to administration, property and liability insurance, which came in higher than was budgeted. To move $3,400 from Parks and Rec special activities line item to administration bank fees, which was under budgeted because we really didn't understand the full scope of those. To move $10,000 from the Parks and Recreation special activities to administration utilities, which is under budgeted. I think there may be some misclassification that we've got to investigate further within that budget because we shouldn't be over budget this much. But at the same time, if we have another large bill come in, I need to be able to write the check. And so some of this is proactive to make sure there's sufficient funds there, and as we try to figure that part out. To move $1,500 from Parks and Recreation special activities to finance miscellaneous fees. This is fees that we paid, tax penalties we paid for late filings. To move $500 from Parks and Recreation special activities to planning and development. To FICA, which was unbudgeted within that account. And to move $5,000 from code enforcement contractual services to code enforcement professional services line items, because that's under budgeted, and that is for Alliance Code Enforcement. And making those moves, the special activities budget would go from $25,000, of which we've spent about $2,504, and would still leave us with $5,496. And, sorry, I think I printed out the wrong copy. We also, I know I did it. Oh, I'm looking at it, I can't see it for looking. And we also need to move $4,000 from the assigned fund balance into the budget to pay for the critical intersection study for Lester Davis and Newtown Roads. Council approved the agreement in 2024 and set aside $4,000 in the assigned fund balance at that time. So this is just moving it in so we can pay the invoice we just received.
You're doing such a good job with this, I have to say. That's, gosh, all the detail and, ugh. So, thank you for being so.
So any questions on any of those? David has a pained expression.
No, I'm good.
So if there's a motion to approve the budget amendment that encompasses those 8 changes,
I'll make a motion that we accept the changes as so recommended by our finance officer.
I will second.
Any questions? All in favor? Unanimous?
and
That's it for you.
that's all I have unless there's any other questions.
Any questions for Ms. Bailey?
You've answered them.
And remember, our audit is still pending, the pending date of
As I said at the beginning.
February?
of February.
Sorry. So now for the mayor report. Deb was kind enough to go to WIMA for me because I was not feeling well. So I'm going to let her report out on that.
Alrighty. The WUMA was held in Weddington Town Hall on the 22nd. Those in attendance were the Marvin Councilwoman, and most of these people were new. Angel Martin, Mineral Springs Mayor Rick Becker, Stallings Mayor David Scholl. All these folks are new, as like I said. Waxhaw Commissioner Richard Daunt, Weddington Mayor Pro Tem Tom Smith, and me. During the public comments portion of the meeting, Wesley Chapel resident Joel Down urged the Alliance to hire a lobbyist in Raleigh. Waxhaw Commissioner Richard Daunt was voted the chair, and Rick Becker the vice chair. I won't go into what the reports that I gave because you guys know that already. The group discussed what priorities women would have for 2026. Public safety and legislative priorities were the top 2 mentioned. They discussed asking each municipality, how safe are the towns in the county? How safe do you think the towns are in the county? Safety is a big concern right now, apparently. Stallings Mayor, Mr. Scholl, reported that 32% of his town's budget went to pay their 26 law enforcement officers. And Richard Daunt said Waxhaw has its own police force with 39 officers, but he didn't know how much of their budget paid for that, but he said he knew it was more than 30%. So, that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Bledsoe?
Was there what's the strategy on the lobbyist? Is that still being discussed?
It's being discussed. They're looking at, whether they should do it or not.
I think Waxaw's got one, and they were gonna have her come talk about what exactly she
Yeah, because
does.
there's some real concerns about what their legislators are trying to do to the municipalities around the state. In other words, take away all the power. So, they really feel like having a lobbyist is a way to go.
Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome.
I need to formally accept the resignation of Jonathan Aliff from the Board of Adjustment, alternate seat 2. We never meet, so it was easy to overlook that. We don't have to have a motion for that, right? We just accept his resignation. Last month for the code enforcement report, there was some confusion. The cover sheet said that the contract ran fiscal year 2025-26. But actually in the fine print, it stopped in December of 2025. So I need a motion from council to approve continuing our contract with Alliance Code Enforcement through June 2026. And we'll have the new contract for the next fiscal year.
So motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous? And then item D is the fire district update. I did get an email today from Chief McClendon, and I'm gonna read it because I don't want to misspeak. He said, in 2019, when Union County updated all of their contracts for fire protection, each municipality adopted the new contract and he was at the meeting when the village did this. District lines have been discussed for a very long time, and there was specific language in the contract that gave the ultimate authority to the municipality to contact their elected providers for fire service. Therefore, if this is something the council is interested in, you do have the ability to make the change. So we're gonna meet hopefully next week, and I should hopefully have and talk about the neighborhoods that are serviced by more than one provider. So, stay tuned. That is all. There is some other good news that we have, but I'm gonna let Emily share it, about the funding for Waxhaw Indian Trail and Billy Howie. Or do you want me to share it?
You can share it.
Okay. We did get notification, from the NCDOT that we were awarded, again, I don't, we were awarded a local match funding for our, I hope that's the bill. We were awarded $750,000, what was it, spot mobility funds, for that project, which is wonderful. So Emily said the process now is, because it was part of that, we paid $4,000 for the critical intersection study. They proposed two things. We had public meetings, and now there's a plan for improving that intersection. So we have gotten the funding, and now Emily said it has to go to the state.
Yes, that's what I talked to DOT, and that was the process she said, was that it has to go to the state, for them to officially, approve it. So there's no concrete timeline right now.
But we're hoping 2027,
I think 2027 is what she said.
but that's exciting.
Hopefully, hopefully funding.
And hopefully that wouldn't take as long. It's a big project, but it's not like building a roundabout.
Right, well, and also it is, because we did, do it as part of the critical intersection, and that's the whole point of doing the critical intersection studies, is that we have what we call shovel-ready projects. So it's already gone through engineering, it's already gone through public, everybody's on board for that, that helps a lot.
Which is good that we have another project on the books for Lester Davis. Newtown. All right, so Emily, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, so as our residential developments, McCoy Farms, they recently submitted the final plat for the remaining 22 lots. That's review. Aurora Price Mill is 35 lots, and we should be getting a formal application for their preliminary plat very, very soon, so y'all should be seeing that in the next couple of months. Quintessa has also submitted, for preliminary plat for 15 lots. It's actually the very, rear of the development. There's a common open space back there, and they're gonna be building a new road with, 15 new lots off of that. So these are all things that have been submitted and are going through the review process right now.
Emily, last month I asked about timelines and recommitting them. Now that we seem to have a little more activity, have we been able to document those?
Well,
Reinforce
actually, I
those.
told somebody the other day that what he wanted to do, he was trying to do it. Pushed it back, he's like, okay, next one.
Yeah. I think it's just knowing, it's expectations, it's just having,
Right,
making sure
and
they're
that's
clear
why
on
I told him,
expectations.
You were nowhere near that, don't get excited. You're just too soon, so, yes, we're definitely pulling back on that. Commercial center updates, in front of you, you should have, I think in your packet also, you had a Village Commons monthly update. I went through sort of, what has been approved, what's being constructed. And I also found a nice little drawing from Aspen to give y'all so you can kind of see where where they are, because some things, maybe they're talking to people and you can actually see on there where it says you're in negotiation or it's still just available. And there's a couple of things that I haven't heard anything about. And there's a couple, I think, for example, Mattress Firm for some reason has submitted their site plan to us. The building hasn't even started yet. But that is,
Would that be one of those orange buildings that's under
Yes.
contract?
that is, yes, that's one of the orange buildings, that F1 and F2. It's not even under construction yet, but apparently there's gonna be a mattress firm there.
And we don't know what the other two under contract.
No, I mean, that's, I've put everything on here. If I know they've submitted something to me, I put it on here for y'all to know. And that's why I wanted to give you this, just so you could see the information that I have and the information that Aspen has.
I do think it's exciting that there are 3 restaurant opportunities on here. 2 with outdoor dining or a patio and another one. It's exciting. I hope that comes to fruition.
So I will continue to update this as we get, as things progress as far as construction or any other permits that we get.
Thank you, Emily.
And we talked about Newtown and Billy Howie, but there are a couple other road projects. I don't have any updates for the 84 Potter Road intersection, Shinglewood Road, no updates for that. Newtown, Hufferson, as far as, the state project is in the design works. They're in the right-of-way portion right now, but they're not, even looking to let it until 2027. So that's where that is. I did contact the county to try to find out any information about, about Newtown and Hufferson as far as the turn lane. And, we already contacted the developer, and I didn't have any information by the end of the day, so I don't know. Amy and I both went out there. There's nothing. There's some trucks, utilities done some grading, but, I'll continue to keep trying to get information from the county on that. So we talked about Billy Howie, Lester Davis, Newtown Road. So that is part of the critical intersections study. And we do have a tentative date for the virtual public hearing, virtual public meeting, which will be March 17th. We have a staff, all of the municipalities in the county and our consultant, we meet once a month. We've got another meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and so that's why right now it's still tentative. But I will definitely be getting information to Amy so she can post that link online. There are postcards that are gonna be sent out to property owners around that intersection to let them know about the public meeting. And what they're gonna do this time is actually put the story map out beforehand, hopefully by the 23rd of this month. So that people can actually go online, look at the story maps, see, the information about why we're proposing this intersection. And today you'll be able to look at that before that meeting on March 17th.
Any questions from Ms. Hines? Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Hines. All right, Mr. Lepke. He has the bad news to share.
So, just 3 things to talk about. 2 of them will be brief. The snow event, as it was approaching, discussed with Amanda whether we close the gate or open the gate. let people sled in the park. We decided we'd just leave the gate as normal. In retrospect, that might not have been a good idea because it seems an awful lot of people went there sledding, and as a result, our 10 inches of snow became 2 inches of solid ice. And it was a skating rink going up and down that driveway. There were tracks where people had gone off the road into the ditches inside the park, and it took me nearly a whole day with the tractor to scrape the ice off. And even then, you could barely get up the hill. So I think what we should do next time around a snow event is come in, close the gate, and then do not open it again until I've had a chance with the tractor to lift the snow off the hill, because we don't want cars being in the ditches again. I didn't see who went in the ditches, but for sure you could see the tracks. Cars had been off the road in the ditches. So, next snow event, close the gate, keep them out, keep the snow nice and soft so I can move it easy. Second thing, the state grant, the 10 million fund, we didn't qualify. They said although we breached the dam as a preventative measure because for Helene, it didn't qualify as damage from Helene, so we didn't get it. Amy Black followed up with the state guy and had a discussion about, well, we're kind of being penalized for doing the right thing, and is that really sending the right message? So we ain't got it, and the FEMA one is still out there. Nothing known, nothing likely to be known anytime soon. Right, the big issue is the pond. I do have a whole presentation. I'm only going to go through it if you want me to. Amanda and Laurie have already seen it. George has seen it. Basically, in a nutshell, the contractor appears to have abandoned the site. George got one of his colleagues with some construction experience to look over all the documents. Despite numerous requests to the contractor, he never submitted the performance bond to the village, so he is in material breach. We are in receipt of an invoice for $52,000 for his mobilization, which we've sent a letter from the lawyer saying we're not going to pay that till you sit down and talk to us about how we're going to move forward. I did have a meeting with the contractor where I presented several options for a path forward. What I didn't know at the time I was having the meeting was he'd already demobilized. I met with him early on a Monday morning, left the meeting after an hour, got to the park, all his equipment's gone, and he's basically bailed on the site. So the idea, sending a letter from the lawyer saying we're not going to pay you for mobilization because you're basically not, you're in material breach of the contract, was to force him to the table. Today, was it today, Emma, or Friday?
It was, I'm not sure.
We received a response saying, okay, I want to meet. This is the contractor now to talk about a path forward, so we've got him to the table. I suggest Amanda and Amy attend that meeting. Amy sent us some dates for next week. Did you see them? I think it revolves more around your availability and Amy Black's availability. So Amy Black said anytime in the afternoon, 17th, 19th, or 20th.
Will you forward it to me?
It'll be the following week. If you can't do any of those dates, it'll be the following week.
Will you forward it to me?
Yeah, it's just a text, yeah.
Oh, it was a text.
It's just a text. I don't know, I thought she copied both of us, but maybe not. So basically, we need to get together with the contract, review this again. I don't know if you guys want to go through it all. So I reported at the last council meeting, as he started moving forward, he identified a location where the muck was far deeper than we had told him in the contract. However, there's a whole bunch of area on the pond that he could likely access that is the depth we told him it was going to be. If he just avoids the area where it's deep, he can still remove the muck. I even suggested that even though he was removing less than the 4,700 cubic yard contracted, because of the greater difficulty accessing this muck, I'd be happy to talk to council about still giving him the amount of the contract for moving less cubic yards, but still moving a significant amount of cubic yards. Didn't want to talk about that. Came back with a proposal where instead of $220,000, he wants $850,000. So, no. So,
A little bit of an increase.
right, but we still want to spend that money and not give it back to state. So what I'm suggesting as the possible path forward is, number one, we ask him to come back, continue working, use up the contract value, and remove everything he can. If he doesn't want to do that and he keeps pushing, he says, I'm not coming back, well, we've got an invoice for $52,000, we'll say, well, maybe you get your $52,000 back if you move all the mess you've already made, because he's moved some dirt into a big pile and he's left a bunch of timbers in the pond, you know, big timbers that they can drive the backhoe over. If you want your 52, you need to come back, clean the site up, remove all the dirt you have disturbed at the current contract rate of $35.86, and then we'll close you out and we'll move on with somebody else. If he says, I'm not coming back to clean it up, then I think we say, well, you ain't getting any money. Because we'll need that to pay somebody else to clean up the mess he's left. Hopefully, and we've indicated in the letter from George's colleague, we want to work with him and we want to find a path forward. But my gut feel is he doesn't want to move forward.
Do we have a plan B?
So
Do you know
plan
about
B would be, and I already called, Amy's calling people to see if there's any interest, and I called the people who did the breach to see if they've got any interest. Plan B would be, instead of saying, give us a price to move 4,700 cubic yards, say, we've got $240,000, how much can you move for 240 before the June deadline? And then see who can move the most for the 240, clean out what we can, and then deal with the rest when we fix the dam at some point down the road. Because we do not want to give that money back.
And you saw that our state legislature was like, hey, you spend it or you give it back.
Yeah. So, so if council's okay with that as a path forward, I'm going to engage Amanda. George's firm has already been engaged all along the way. Amy Black has been engaged all along. If you want me to, I can go through the whole logic of this path forward. I just think it'll bore you. So we have some potential paths forward, and then the bottom line would be we can't find a path forward with the current contractor, so we go out with another request for proposals based on here's how much money we got, how much muck can you move for that amount of money? So rather than wait a whole month in case that occurs like next week and we have to go, is council okay with us, me working with Amy and George to write an RFP around the basis of here's the pot of money, how much can you move for that?
I'm fine with that. Do you need a motion or something, or just,
I don't know, just,
all right, make some motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Who seconded?
Lori?
Okay, so the motion is to,
that if necessary, we can move forward with another RFP on a pot of money basis rather than a cubic yard basis.
and that's if the companies,
If we can not find a path forward after negotiation with the current contract.
So we're going to assume that the current contractor is defaulted.
Well, he's been sent a letter saying he is in material breach of the contract because he did not provide, as the contract required, he was required to provide a performance bond prior to mobilization. Despite numerous requests to do that, he did not provide that and has since refused to provide it. So he mobilized
At his own risk.
at his own risk.
Okay. So then, does this motion take into account any possible monies that we're gonna have to pay the contractor in default if he comes back wanting monies for mobilization? I.e. to avoid a lawsuit?
George feels we probably owe him something, but probably not the full amount. So now we've got him to the table, we're gonna have a negotiation with him about whether he gets some of it, all of it, none of it. And that depends on his actions. Personally, I think, as I suggested, if he doesn't want to go forward for the full contract value, we want him to, at a minimum, come clean up the mess he's made, remove his mats, his big timber pieces, and remove all the muck he's disturbed at the contracted 3586 a cubic yard, and we can measure that. Then he gets his full mobilization invoice paid, which we've already received, $52,000 and change. If he says, no, I'm not coming back to clean it, then we're like, well, we've got to pay somebody else to clean that. So we're going to argue about how much you get.
And the state says this has to be done by what date?
June, end of June. All work done and invoices paid by the end of June. So that's why myself and Amy Black are already reaching out to alternate grading companies to gauge the level of interest.
The original contractor is from where? Where's he located?
Monroe.
Monroe? Okay.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? You send me those dates, I'll get back to you.
All right.
Okay. That leads us to mayor and council comments. Who wants to go first?
I'll be happy to go first.
Thank you.
I was trying to defer.
Always generous.
Amy and I had a great opportunity to do the newly elected officials training through the League of Municipalities. It was a wonderful opportunity. We learned a lot. One of the key things that they told us, one of the key takeaways that I took away from it, is it's about communication. It's about how you communicate with each other, how you talk to your residents, how you talk, really importantly, how we talk to each other to make sure that we're successful. I think that watching the multiple presentations on that topic really hit home how well this board does with communicating with each other. Making sure that we don't use accusatory language, making sure that we're communicating so that nobody sits up here and is bamboozled or hit with something for the first time and have to react from being on the heels as opposed to being on the balls of their feet. So it was a very good opportunity. I learned a lot. Hopefully Amy learned a lot. And I look forward to implementing the skill sets that they taught us during our time here in the future moving forward.
Next.
George, it's been a long time since we've got a quote.
It has been a while. I've been wondering if you were slipping.
There's a sign in our office that says successful people are not gifted, they just work hard and succeed on purpose. Because between the recall capacity of my wife and I, we spent a lot of time yesterday afternoon running back and forth, picking up cups and other things that we had forgotten at a meeting yesterday afternoon, all while trying to get home in time to see the Super Bowl. But in the course of that running back and forth, I was able to witness our sign sweep company pick up signs. And we have got a very successful party that is sweeping signs. He was all over the place yesterday afternoon. So, a lot of times we hear the negatives about people, but I just want to share that he was doing a great job yesterday afternoon, watching traffic, grabbing signs, and as I said, we were transversing the village several times, and he was out there hustling.
That is awesome. Ms. Bledsoe?
Well, I enjoyed the presentations on law enforcement today and learned a lot. Looking forward to getting additional information. And like I said, it's always good to have more information and less information as far as where our problem areas are. So I'm hoping that we can do that. And I am going to take advantage of some of the things I suggested, like the app and going to their website for things. So, yeah, it was good. I'm glad they came.
Riding in their police car?
I'd love to ride in a police car.
Better sign that waiver. All right,
I'll sign a bunch of waivers.
thank you all for coming, and I'll entertain a motion to dismiss.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Y'all have a good night.